Picture this one. Does anybody though? Don't worry about it, Margaret. I'm talking to staff if there's somebody that
Tony Romo is invited to this production. I can't see it.
Here we go, Sharon, and go.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Okay, good evening, Happy New Year again,
Mr. Mayor. There you go.
and unmute myself. I am unmuted.
I just did it.
Oh, okay. Hello, everybody, Happy New Year, welcome to the January 12th, 2021 Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting. We're going to limit physical access to this meeting due to the current limitations on public gatherings. Accommodations have been made to ensure that the public is able to participate. Here's the way you can participate. Franklin TV, City of Franklin website, or you can watch live stream through the Franklin Facebook and YouTube accounts, or here's a great number for you to call, 312-626-6799 with a meeting ID of 987-407-92340 with a passcode of 904112. Callers will be unmuted and given an opportunity to comment during the meeting at specific times. Limited viewing will be available in the lobby of City Hall. The public may email comments and questions prior to 4:30 on the day of the meeting to the recorder at franklintn.gov to be read aloud. Live comments and those submitted by email will be limited to 2 minutes. Here's the links. YouTube is www.youtube.com/user/city of Franklin, and Facebook is www.facebook.com/City of Franklin, and the old dependable City of Franklin website is www.franklintn.gov/Franklin TV. We're formally called to order now. I'm going to call the roll to see who's here. Alderman Barnhill.
Alderman Martin.
Present.
Alderman Speedy.
Present.
Alderman Berger.
Present.
Vice Mayor Berger, rather. Excuse me. Alderman Blanton.
Present.
Alderman Peterson.
Present.
And Alderman McClendon. He is there, but okay. So we're going to begin with the invocation, and I'll lead the Pledge of Allegiance.
Sorry,
so Alderman Barnhill, and we do have a response from Alderman McClendon that he is here. So Alderman Barnhill, would you give us an invocation and then a pledge? I'll lead that.
Would everyone bow with me? Heavenly Father, we come to you tonight thanking you for this great nation that we live in and for all the many freedoms that we enjoy. We know that we're going through some very difficult times now with the coronavirus and other issues. We ask your blessings to be with the leaders of this great country. Give them spiritual wisdom and guidance. But we also ask, Heavenly Father, that you be with each of us locally. We know that the decisions that we make here ultimately affect the city of Franklin. Give us wisdom, guidance. All this we ask in Christ's name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The next item is has to do with Resolution 2020-276, a resolution declaring that the Board of Mayor and Aldermen shall meet on January 12th, 2021 and conduct its essential business by electronic means rather than being required to gather a quorum of the members physically present in the same location because it's necessary to protect the health, safety, and welfare of Tennesseans in light of the COVID-19 outbreak. Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Move for
Thank you,
approval.
Alderman. Thank you, Alderman Blanton. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Alderman Martin. Any discussion? Ready to vote? Vice Mayor Berger, how do you vote?
Yes.
Alderman Barnhill,
Yes.
Alderman Martin,
Yes.
Alderman Speedy,
Yes.
Alderman Blanton,
Yes.
Alderman Peterson,
Yes.
and Alderman McClendon.
Yes.
Thank you. Passes 7-0. We'll now go to opportunity for citizens to make comments for items that are not on the agenda tonight. Do we have anyone, Angie?
Callers on the line,
Hello?
if you have, go ahead.
Hi, good evening, Mayor and Alderman. My name is Alan Sims. I live at 119 Lewisburg Avenue in Franklin. I'm a longtime listener, but this is my first time calling in because I've got a concern. When we were remodeling our house back in 2015, we had to install an additional pump to make our irrigation system work for our front yard because there wasn't enough water pressure. At that time, I thought it was just an inconvenience for us, but now I'm concerned this could be potentially a life-threatening issue. I'm sure y'all are aware of the fire on Berry Circle that destroyed Danny and Teresa Anderson's house. Berry Circle is directly behind my house. So I've read on the Franklin homepage, the Williamson Source, and the Williamson Herald that water pressure was an issue for controlling that fire. So I'd like to request an investigation or a public report or something that ensures that we have the constant required water pressure for this neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Duly noted. Next is any other comments? Seeing none, as I have no communications from the Williamson County Commission, and so we'll now go to approval of the minutes. And we're considering the minutes from December the 8th, 2020 work session and also the Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting. Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Thank you, Alderman Peterson. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Any discussion? Ready to vote? Vice Mayor, how do you vote?
Yes.
Alderman Barnhill, how do you vote? I hear a yes. Alderman Martin,
Yes.
Alderman Speedy,
Yes.
Alderman Blanton,
Yes.
Alderman Peterson,
Yes.
and Alderman McClendon.
Yes.
Passes 7-0. We're now going to go to a proclamation, and I do see, I thought I saw Doug Sharp. There he is, right in the middle of the screen. And Doug, we appreciate you being with us tonight, and we're honored to issue a proclamation to recognize you and your work. And I think your current president, I assume Jason's the current president, is going to make a quick comment too after I read this recognition. And whereas Doug Sharp was in the 2001 class of Leadership Franklin that established the Sister Cities organization as their project, and that Sister Cities continue creating relationships, experiences that further enrich our diverse community. And whereas he was elected as the first president and served for 11 years, my gosh. Whereas president, he helped establish relationships with Carleton Place, Canada, County Laois, Ireland, and has visited these cities as well as most of the recent relationships with Bad Soden-am-Taunus, Germany. And whereas he was instrumental in establishing the Celebration of Nations, and whereas Doug has always been supportive of our student exchange events, and whereas Doug is constant and always willing to serve with countless volunteer hours and his own financial contribution. Now therefore, I, Dr. Ken Moore, Mayor of Franklin, do hereby express my sincere appreciation for his passionate generosity for our community and thank him for his dedicated service. And thank you so much, Doug. Would you like to say a quick word before Jason says something?
Yes, only briefly. Thank you, first of all, Mayor Moore.
Not for 11 years.
I didn't expect this, not by any means, but it certainly gives me the opportunity to highlight the Sister Cities organization that helps facilitate the official relationships that the city of Franklin and Williamson County have with their counterparts. And myself and the rest of the board, current and past, take great joy and pleasure and personal benefit in terms of just relationships and the like as well. So thank you very much. And also thank you for, on behalf of other citizens that participate in countless volunteer boards for the city.
Thank you. Jason Collins, are you on the line?
Yes, sir, I am. How are you?
Jason, I'm fine. You want to make a quick comment about Doug to the audience?
I would. Thank you. And I again, Doug has done a lot. Usually Leadership Franklin participants, they end with a presentation and a very nice project they leave for Franklin or help out with Franklin. And Doug's has been with him for 19 years, and he's been with it for 19 years. He had some other people with him, but he carried the torch for 19 years. And in that time, he's had several trips and visitors from Ireland, Canada, and Germany. And, we also have had exchange students since 2014. And we hope to grow, and with Doug's establishing this foundation, we plan to grow even more exchange students, possibly exchange professionally. I know we do things with the firefighters, et cetera, and just grow that and grow that outside of Germany to where there's more of it with our relationships we have with Ireland and Canada. So I'm very proud to have been able to volunteer with Doug, and it's just it's a huge accomplishment, and appreciate all the time and money. He's dedicated a lot of time and money to Sister Cities of Franklin. So huge thank you from all of us.
About a clap.
Thank you, Jason.
Much appreciated. Thank you, Jason and Doug. Congratulations. And appreciate you being on the call. Next are other miscellaneous reports. Do we have any? Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. And on the consent agenda, all items are deemed to be non-controversial and routine in nature by the governing body. They will be approved as recommended by committee or staff by one motion of the governing body. And tonight we're considering items number 13 through 24. So I'll consider a motion.
Motion to approve, Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Barnhill. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Alderman Martin. Any discussion? Ready to vote? Vice Mayor Berger.
Yes.
Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Martin.
Yes.
Alderman Speedy.
Yes.
Alderman Blanton.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
And Alderman McClendon.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. We'll now go to old business. This is a public hearing, and it's consideration of initiating the annexation process and draft plan of services, Resolution 2020-207, for the annexation of 4268 Columbia Pike.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. If you bear with me a moment, I'm going to share my screen. Here we go. Is everyone able to see that? Yes? All right.
No.
No? Oh, I'm glad someone said something. Okay. Hold on just a moment then. Can you see that?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. All right. Let's get started then. Thank you very much for your help. Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before we talk specifically about these properties, I'd like to talk a little bit about our general approach to strategic growth and annexation. I want to thank Alderman Speedy for starting this discussion at the work session about looking at the bigger picture when we start thinking about annexation. So that's what I'd like to do right now. Envision Franklin lays out recommendations for well-managed growth. I'm going to just touch on these, highlight them. It says that strategic growth is encouraged and supported by existing city infrastructure and services and where it is planned. It also talks about the extension of infrastructure and public services should be used as a tool to strategically direct growth and where it should take place. It also talks about using our land use policies and infrastructure improvements to maximize efficiency and public benefit and attempt to minimize negative impacts of growth. Most specifically, it talks about annexation within the UGB should be approached in a comprehensive manner that promotes contiguity, that's a really hard word to say, sorry, contiguity and orderly growth, efficient delivery of municipal services, and proactive planning for future development. In 2018, we held a special BOMA meeting and had a discussion on annexation. We asked these bigger picture questions. And as we think about how we expand our borders, I think we do need to kind of go back to these questions, the why questions of why should we grow as a city and what are we trying to achieve as a city when we do annexations and attempt to grow our city boundaries. We also talked about our capability to annex in different areas of the UGB to help us evaluate requests for annexations in different drainage basins. Staff evaluated the amount of development potential, development constraints, and the magnitude of investment needed to be able to serve a particular area. As you know, state legislature made changes in 2015 to the annexation laws that really took away a lot of our tools to manage growth and do strategic planning and do it in an orderly fashion. However, we still have a responsibility to grow in that fiscally responsible, strategic way. So as part of that discussion, we evaluated each drainage basin in our UGB, and we made this map identifying where they are. And there's a way to look at how we could grow in a certain area first. Can we prioritize the way we grow for some reason or another? We looked at several factors. They're there on the left-hand side of the screen. We looked at within each basin, what is the developable acreage? What are the potential future land uses? What's the ability to provide services? And what's the magnitude of investment? And based on those factors, we rated them in the short, mid, and long-term capabilities. I want to point out now that, since then, the city has been making decisions that align with this analysis. For example, if you look down at the bottom of the screen, we recently annexed, even though it was outside our UGB, we annexed in that Goose Creek area, and that was identified as a short-term capability. Also, right now, we're looking at the West Harpeth area and studying that area for potential growth. Again, that's been identified as a short-term capability. We've even considered annexing in the Mays Creek area, but we have not done so yet. And again, that's determined by a mid-range capability. The properties that we're going to talk about tonight, if you notice, are in a long-term capability area. So I'd like to bring up that slide. Oops, sorry. So when we did the discussion on this area, we looked at this entire drainage basin. And what we found were the factors on the left-hand side of the screen there, that in this basin, there was limited developable area. Really the only future land uses we thought were appropriate were residential. And there were not problems, but issues with the infrastructure in the area, the sanitary sewer, the road infrastructure, and even emergency services were going to have extended response times to this area if we were to annex. So I want to get a little bit deeper into some of those issues, the infrastructure issues and the land uses. So I'm going to go to the next screen. I'm going to turn it over to Paul Holzen to start with the roadway infrastructure.
Just real briefly on the roadway infrastructure, the one road that stands out is Snowbird Hollow Roadway. Obviously, it's a very rural type section roadway. It does need some significant improvements on it as you start allowing increased density in this area. It's project number 81 in our in Connect Franklin, our comprehensive transportation network plan. It's really a long-range project that's, it's essentially driven by development. It's about 1.14 miles. The estimated cost would be around $8 million. I think that number is probably underestimated at this point. I will say, if you look at the projected collector impact fees the development would generate, we just assume 500 units, not saying that's going to be the density of it, but just to roughly show a number, would be about $1.67 million. So it wouldn't even remotely pay for Snowbird Hollow Road. As we start to allow development out here, I just want to make sure the roadway network that we're building out here, we can afford to build it and can be built. And in all fairness, we haven't entered into any negotiations with the developer or asked them to pay for the whole road or asked their ideas. I've heard ideas about them building a collector road and bearing that cost, which is one of the ideas that I've heard from Greg Gamble, which is something we would need to work out, and more than likely we would expect them to do something along those lines. The other thing I would say is it does have fairly good access to interstate. That's a positive for it. It has good access via Goose Creek and Columbia Pike to 840 and I-65. But overall, you can see the long-range transportation projects, collector roads here, the fees that will be generated won't even remotely pay for the infrastructure. Will be part of the challenge with the transportation. And then Ben McNeil's on the line, and Ben does an outstanding job and does a lot of our water and sanitary sewer reviews and works with the development community. So I'm going to turn it over to him to give you kind of an overview of the sanitary sewer infrastructure that's required to serve this site.
Thanks, Paul. So briefly, in terms of sanitary sewer service for this property, we're looking at the developer would extend roughly 1.8 miles of a gravity sewer to the northern property boundary. And then from there, that gravity sewer system would cross roughly 21 properties, and there would be easement acquisition for each of those properties. The septic systems would all have to be evaluated with that installation to ensure that they were not damaged. If they were damaged, obviously they would have to go onto the new sewer system. The property itself, there's a high point, a ridge line that runs through the center of the property. So you're looking at an estimated 2 pump stations that would be temporary. Those pump stations would have to be relocated to a future final destination. And with each development that comes on after the development of this property, that those pump stations would have to be moved to their final place. It's likely that a sanitary sewer study for this overall area would need to be evaluated. We've got existing basin plans that show how the sewer is to be served, but the city's not looked in depth at what the future growth of this area would be and what type of infrastructure would be required. The cost on this, the sewer to serve this at a high level view is somewhere around $3 to $5 million. That would include the gravity sewer, the sanitary sewer force mains, and then the station cost. Amy, I'll turn it back to you.
Great. Thanks, Ben. So the last point I want to make about this annexation potential is in terms of its potential land use that they might propose. Today, the property is in development reserve in the Envision Franklin document, our long-range planning document. which does not define how properties should develop or what uses could be supported. Development reserve areas were designated because they currently do not have sufficient infrastructure and city services nearby, and they may also have natural constraints on the property. So if this annexation initiation was voted on tonight, the next step would be to amend Envision Franklin to assign it a design concept. This might prove challenging only because you can see at the bottom there, that entire light green area is development reserve. So it might be hard to analyze just one property without fully understanding how infrastructure could develop for the area, because it's, infrastructure is based on land use intensity. If we can't identify what intensity is for the larger area, I don't know how we can define land use for just one property or two properties. And also there may be a disconnect between the density needed to offset those infrastructure costs that Paul and Ben just spoke on with the desired character that wants to be retained in the area. So the surrounding land uses should also be evaluated. And like Ben said, maybe even a larger basin study for the area to understand what's warranted out here. So to wrap up for everyone, this brings us back to the question at hand: should this property be considered for annexation? Recent annexation requests have fallen into areas that were deemed short-term in capability, and for the large part were contiguous to the city limits. This is in the long-term capability area of our study from 2018, and it is not contiguous to the city limits. As Ben said, and Paul said, it's 1.8 miles away from the city limits. Also, as Ben and Paul indicated, infrastructure improvements needed are costly and are currently prioritized as long-term projects. Lastly, sort of being 1.8 miles from the city limits could also affect response times for our fire, police, and even our solid waste services. The decision to further annex this property would most definitely influence where growth should take place and how. And if annexed, it would pull commitments and infrastructure improvement projects for growth to an additional area of the city, bypassing the short and midterm areas. Staff believes that everything we've presented thus far tells us that this property should not be considered at this time for annexation, and we should wait till develop in this area and just decline this request for now. So thank you very much, and I'd be happy to answer any follow-up questions on this presentation.
Okay, this is a public hearing, and I know Mr. Gamble wants to say a few words, but I'm going to see if there are any citizens that want to make any comments at this time. I see that there are not. So, Mr. Gamble, I'll allow you a couple of minutes to make some comments, and I think you wanted to share a map so that you could make your point.
Yes, if I could share my screen, that'd be great. I just have one map to show. Thank you, Mayor and Alderman. We appreciate your consideration of this request. This property is being presented to you tonight by Goodall Homes. Goodall Homes is a partner to the city of Franklin. They are part of the development groups here in Franklin that raise the bar for other developers in Franklin. They do hold a high standard for themselves and their development and their neighborhoods, and take pride in those contributions that they have been able to make so far to the city of Franklin. This property is approximately 300 acres in size. There are very few properties in the city of Franklin's urban growth boundary that are 300 acres in size. You are currently looking at plans for Ingraham Farm and the connection of Market Street south to Highway 96. You're currently looking at properties that are around Gentry Farms. Those two areas that I identified have been identified in the growth analysis as good areas for future growth. As Amy pointed out, where I have the green hills highlighted here, from those green hills all the way back to I-65, we're not only identified as good areas for future growth, but they're also identified in the short term. Well, these lots are primarily already developed. This is Williamson County subdivisions that you're seeing here, both north and south of Henpeck. You have Red Wing Farms and development along I-65 that's also Williamson County. So all of these properties that you're seeing along Lewisburg Pike that are north of Goose Creek Bypass are very unlikely to be annexing or requesting annexation into the city of Franklin anytime in the near future. There are some larger properties that are along Goose Creek Bypass as you approach this property that do have potential for annexation into the city of Franklin. This property, this 300 acres, is 2.8 miles to the city's brand new fire station number 7. It's 4 miles south of the police station, and it's 3.3 miles south of the sanitary services department where we handle our solid waste, our trash. These distances are closer than the majority of Franklin to these services. Very few properties have immediate access to 2 arterial roads, Columbia Pike and Goose Creek Bypass, and very few properties have immediate access to 2 interstate interchanges, one on I-65 and one on 840. Yes, this property is not contiguous, but if sewer is not extended south, there will be very limited opportunity and chance for additional annexations along Goose Creek Bypass. If the sewer is extended south, you will see other properties request annexation, and you will see a path forward to annexations that will connect this property to the city of Franklin. This property is also within the best corridor for schools anywhere in the urban growth boundary as it relates to school capacity. If this property is not considered for annexation, or we don't have a path forward to provide sewer in this area, it could be 50 years or more before anything beyond or south of the green hills here would ever be considered for annexation. We are asking for your consideration tonight not to annex this property, but to give us the opportunity to explore with staff these hurdles that have been outlined to you today that are in front of us. We have very limited areas for new growth in the city of Franklin for single family homes, and we believe that this is an excellent opportunity for this type of development. Tonight, we do see the challenges that are ahead of us. Goodall Homes is asking to be a partner to the city of Franklin. They're asking for your approval tonight to allow us the opportunity to explore the challenges that are ahead of us. We believe that there are potential solutions for sewer. We believe that there are potential solutions for a development plan within this corridor of Franklin in this area of the urban growth boundary that will be a win-win for the city of Franklin. I ask you tonight that in the event that you determine that this property should not be annexed into the city of Franklin, that you please help us articulate to the property owner those elements that need to take place first before this property could be annexed into the city. If one of that criteria is that this property become adjacent to the city of Franklin city limits, you can see then the hurdles ahead. If the decision is that sewer needs to be made available to us, we would like the opportunity to explore that with staff, evaluate the costs, use the recommendations of staff for utility studies, for those things that are necessary to evaluate how this property could be developed. There is a great potential for other properties to also be annexed into the city of Franklin. Without this first piece and without the sewer being extended, yes, I agree, the likelihood of other properties being annexed in is slim, even in the area that has been identified for short-term growth. Thank you, Mayor, and I'm happy to answer any questions that the Board of Mayor and Aldermen may have.
Thank you. Okay, is there anybody else that wants to speak to this body? If not, I'm going to close this public hearing and ask for a motion. Is there a motion?
I'll go with a motion to approve.
I'm sorry.
Appropriate motion by Alderman Speedy to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Vice Mayor is seconded. Open for discussion. Alderman Speedy, you made the motion. Go ahead.
Sure, and I appreciate Amy's comments about there are some difficulties, and this was originally noted as a long-term growth part of the UGB for Franklin. But I would say, again, the one thing that probably has changed since we looked at that 2018 growth is the county changing their land use plan. And I think, a lot of us would agree that that's forcing more or wanting to force more of the growth into the UGBs. I'm open to exploring it. I guess we have to look at if a developer is willing to pay for those infrastructure costs and run the sewer out there, I think we got to look at that. And I guess if we do deny the annexation request, are we comfortable with this being developed in the county? And this is just more UGB land that, we're going to be donut hold all throughout the UGB. So I know it's not easy, but I do think it's something we should at least look at.
Mayor.
Everybody understands that this motion is to initiate the annexation process. Is everybody clear with what that motion, that's the way I understood the motion. Is that correct, Alderman Speedy?
Yes.
Okay. Other comments?
Mayor.
Alderman Barnhill.
I think that we would not be serving ourselves well to not look at an annexation process and draft plan of services. It does not obligate us to annex the property, but it does give us an opportunity to understand what is needed in that area and the infrastructure needs, the cost needs, and what's going forward. I think Alderman Speedy made an excellent comment in the new plan by the county to do the 5-acre lots, or whatever they're looking at doing. So I think you want to push more of that, and I've said that, more of the development and density back into the incorporated areas, because we're the ones that have the water and sewer capabilities. So I have no problem, I don't think I do, looking at the annexation process and a draft plan of services, since that gives us an idea of what's needed in that particular area. So I'll vote for initiating the annexation process and plan of services.
Other comments? Alderman Martin.
I appreciate all that's been said. I would have to support the staff on this. I think they've looked into it. They've seen what's necessary. They've pointed this out to us. And just because there's not a lot of land within the city of Franklin to develop, I don't see why we have to continue to put the growth everywhere there's a blade of grass. It may be that this is not the right time for this. The time may come that we could and would want to, but Columbia Avenue is pretty densely traveled. And, I really just think that we're putting more traffic on our roads that we don't need right now. And I just think we're stretching it to try to go out and even talk about annexing this. I will not support it.
Other comments?
Mr. Mayor.
Alderman Peterson.
I believe that probably the staff recommendation to disapprove is the correct one. It's not just that this is not contiguous or anything like that, but if you look at some of those maps, a lot of that land between this property and I guess getting close to the city limits of Franklin is either already developed in fairly large lots that would have to be put together to make anything that would get like even 1 unit per acre. And the other thing is there's a lot of hill and, we don't really have forested land in Williamson County, I don't think, maybe except over in Fairview. But I think that there are aspects of this that the staff has pointed out that would probably be reasons not to investigate this at this time.
Anybody else?
Mayor, maybe one more comment too. I guess what I'm thinking is we've got so many jobs and commercial opportunities down there in Berry Farms that, and I agree, we don't have to develop every piece of land, but I don't think the growth is going to stop. And it just means they're going to drive in from farther and farther away. Murfreesboro, Laverne, Columbia, Lewisburg. That if we, and I think it seems like I've heard a lot from people in the Williamson Inc., the Chamber, and a lot of the realtors that we're getting to have a shortage of single family homes. And I just view this as another opportunity for maybe some more single family homes. I'd love to not build another apartment in Franklin, but if we keep denying some of these requests, we're gonna have a complete shortage of inventory of single family homes.
Anybody else? I do have a question while I wait to see if anybody else, and my question really has to do with as staff goes through, if this were approved and staff were to start initiating the annexation process and the draft plan of services, is that process adequate enough to do what Ben was talking about as far as a basin study? Is it adequate enough to adequately study all the transportation ramifications there and so on?
Mayor?
Go ahead, Mark.
If I may, in terms of the sanitary sewer, I think we would have to take a more in-depth dive relative to other plans. So yeah, I think it would be a little more extensive to understand the best approach to serve this area.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Mr. Mayor, I have a question.
Go ahead, Alderman Berger. I see two of you.
First of all, I've got a question. Yeah, there is two of me right here.
Go ahead with your question.
Question, first of all, is anybody else having problems hearing? Are we cutting in and out with the other speakers or not? Is it just on my end?
I think it's just on your end.
I'm not having any problems.
That sounds like a first word problem.
All right, hold on a second. I'm going to try to. Thank you.
Go ahead with your question.
I'm trying to hide this so I can at least talk to you on my phone because I couldn't hear. I got the gist of what was being said. I know that Margaret's comments about what staff
was your question?
into. Yeah, what staff's looked into. But my comment on supporting or not supporting the plan of services is I'm a little concerned that if we don't look further into it, Alderman Speedy made some good comments about the growth there. But I have a feeling if we don't do the plan of services, then we leave a lot of uncovered information that we probably need to look at for this area. Staff's looked into this to a certain extent, but they have not done a plan of services. And so I think some of the questions in that plan of services could be answered for us as far as extending sewer, because if sewer doesn't get extended out there, I don't see how, if a developer is willing to extend the sewer and do that, what was it, 1.8 miles, then we've got other opportunities in that area for the future. And I'm not looking at just now, I'm looking at what does that mean 15, 25, 30 years from now. So that's why at this point, I'm just going to support the plan of services because I think we do need more information on this. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Mayor?
Go ahead, Alderman McClendon.
We've spent no doubt millions of dollars on these Envision Franklin plans, basin studies, engineering studies. We've spent, if not millions of dollars, a lot of money, but we've invested countless man hours and woman hours in making these plans, soliciting input from the public. And if I understood it correctly, this particular parcel, which is non-contiguous, is in the long-term range and may have been, this may not be exactly the property, but there's a big red blotch, at least down near this, that says it is least suitable for development. Have I got the wrong parcel?
You're right.
You're right.
So it's in the long-term section, and it is specifically labeled least suitable for development. And with all due respect to Mr. Gamble, notwithstanding it's road miles from our convenience center and police department and fire station, it's non-contiguous. You know, if we start this process of annexing this property, it wouldn't shock or even disappoint me if staff went home tonight and banged their head on the wall. And I don't know what to say. We tell the whole world, long-term, least suitable, we're looking elsewhere. Our plans have got, we've got plans to spend money and time and effort elsewhere. And I get it, everybody wants to make a buck, but I mean, who do we tell no if not the non-contiguous, long-range, least suitable property owner?
Mr. Mayor, could I say one other thing? Could we have somebody put on their screen, I think it's called the parameters map. It's the next to the last item there, and show this, because it shows that they have those little green splotches there. I think that means probably hillsides or something like that. But the other thing, you see that there are a lot of other lots that are not inside the city limits of Franklin. Not that one. No, the parameters. I want to see the parameters map.
Okay. The red and orange and green map?
No. It's the next to the last item on this. It's called
I'm sorry. It was an attachment. Is that what you mean?
It says Resolution 2020-207 site parameters.
Give me just a second. I can get that pulled up.
It may not be on your thing. It may be on just maybe the recorders. The recorders.
I can get it for you. Just a second here. Let me get to share screen again. This one?
Yes. You see what this is, and you can see some kind of purplish looking things that are inside the city limits. But look at all of this stuff in white that's outside the city limits that already has been developed in the county. And there's a lot of it that's already. And then if you look along, if you look along Goose Creek Bypass, you'll see a number of extremely large lots there. And so, and the one I have though has a better little thing up there in some of this other area. It shows it's kind of greenish looking or something, where it means that it's probably hillsides or something. I don't know, not suitable for. But as I say, right up in there.
Right. These are all hillsides.
Yes, exactly.
Green hillsides. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. But look at how much that's outside the city limits that's already been subdivided into lots and developed in the county. So I mean, those are not going to come back together and be re-subdivided into, smaller lots and everything that the city would allow.
Okay. Are you through with your points,
Thank you.
Alderman? Thank you, Alderman Peterson. Any other comments? You ready to vote?
I have one question. Dana said something about staff saying this is the most unsuitable.
Do you want to respond to that,
Did you say
Alderman?
that? Amy, is that, was that said by staff?
Yes, there was a map that I went quickly through. I can pull back up if you wanted, but
No, I saw it, but
it was colors from green to red, and green being the most suitable for development, red being the least, based on this parameters that I went through. And this area, particularly as you get close to the end of the UGB, was least suitable. So this basin was least suitable. I believe this property was orange, but so it was not red. I can go back and look, Alderman McClendon, but the idea is that this basin was least suitable for development, that there are others in the city that are more suitable for development, including I think it's up to 900 acres that we annexed on the other side of the highway in the Goose Creek area.
Mayor,
Okay. Alderman Martin, go ahead.
add one thing. I don't see why this can't develop in the county. If they want to develop one unit per 5 acres or 1 unit per 2 acres, whatever. But I don't see why we have to be the ones to develop everything. There's nothing wrong with it developing in the county.
Mayor, may I make one more comment, actually in the form of a question?
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Alderman.
The plan of services obligates us where on the ladder of annexation? It does not obligate us for annexation. It gives us a clearer, more accurate possible picture of what would be needed if that area was annexed and was developed. But I don't think I've heard anybody on the board tonight commit to annexing the property. What you have heard, I believe, is some commitment to the draft plan of services, understanding what's needed in that particular area. I mean, we can agree to disagree, and we can agree that if it needs to be developed it in the county. And I'm fine with that. It doesn't make any difference whether it's developed in the county or not. I think would be advantageous to us to know what, if it was at some point in time annexed, what would be needed in that, specifically what would be needed in that particular area.
Mr. Mayor, if I could clarify. And I think you said that right, Alderman Barnhill. What this does do, first of all, we generate a draft plan of services. It is a draft. When you agree to annex, then you are committing to implement the plan of services, and you are then responsible to do all those things over a period of time to deliver the city services that you promise. So it's true that the draft doesn't commit you to it, but once you decide to annex, you are committing to those items to bring that land into your city and fully serve it. This would be, to kind of get at what the mayor asked a little earlier, this would need to be a much more involved draft related to the sewer component, because there's complexity to it and there's significant cost. And I believe it splits 2 different drainage basins too, if I'm not mistaken. So there's a lot to it, more than your typical draft plan of service. It will require a lot of work for an area that is over a mile outside of our city, and has a lot of other implications for services. So we're kind of giving you the really well done presentation that Amy and Ben and the group gives you a sense of what that plan of services would look like. It is difficult to serve an island of land over a mile outside your city. And that's what we're trying to share with you as to why that is a long-term priority in terms of our ability to serve it, and the different other areas that we look at as we look at strategically how to grow the city the most effective way we can.
I think Mr.
Mr. Girth, go ahead. You wanted to make a comment before we vote.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Mayor. And maybe this is a coincidence. Andrew Orr, who's facilitating the work with the property owners, and Greg, by the way, on the West Basin, had facilitated and coordinated a meeting earlier today with our counterparts from the county. And we talked about the challenges we're facing with the recent changes in annexation laws. And following the meeting, Joe Horn, my counterpart, asked me when we might get back together to engage county commissioners, the aldermen, the mayors, our respective staffs, and talk about what we had talked about this time last year over at the Enrichment Center about how we strategically grow our county and our city. And because there's many issues, and we've just touched upon some of those here with this parcel. And all the comments are correct, but there would be a great amount of work to do additional studies to decide how to grow into this area, some of which we've already done, and that's why it's a long-term area. Not to say we can't do it, but we're stressing our staff resources because we do have areas in this community that are more prime for development. So I just share that with you. Hopefully in the near future, COVID goes away to some extent and we can get everybody together to have these very complicated but necessary conversations.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Girth. Ready to vote?
Mayor, before we do, I'd like to ask Vernon. Vernon, was that answer just a long answer for saying you don't have staff, enough staff to do the draft plan of services because of the complications in that particular area?
Thank you, Alderman Barnhill. It would be a combination of staff and funds that we would have to come to the board to do some of those studies.
Well, and let me say it a little different way too. The reality is we can't grow everywhere all at once. And when we start doing this type of annexation, you start saying everything goes and we can develop everywhere, whether it's a mile away, there's sewer nowhere near it. I mean, it's not just about staff resources, it's about our resources as a community overall. And doing this strategically and aligning it with land use and timing that makes sense.
Mr. Mayor, one more comment, please.
Sure, go ahead, Kelly.
Those comments illustrate exactly what we have put into Envision Franklin, the suitability analysis map that was completed that shows the green through red, as well as the growth priorities or annexation capabilities map, which shows the short, mid, and long-term goals. It's how our entire design concept system in Envision Franklin works, that we put more intensity toward the interstate and towards infrastructure where we've already made those improvements, and out on the edges, on the periphery, aren't as appropriate to develop at this time because we need to do more study, and it's a phased process so that we can grow in an orderly way. So all of that works together with all of our plans and documents across all our policy documents to be able to grow effectively and strategically.
Thank you, Kelly. Y'all ready to vote? We'll start at the top. Alderman Barnhill.
I am going to change my vote to no.
Alderman Martin.
No.
Alderman Speedy.
Yes.
Alderman Berger. Vice Mayor Berger, excuse me.
Yes, with all that additional information, my vote will be no.
And Alderman Blanton.
No.
Alderman Peterson.
No.
Alderman McClendon. No.
Motion fails 6-1. Item 6, this is public hearing consideration of resolution 2020-245, a resolution approving a mural entitled Let Your Light Shine on the Riley Family Salon Boutique and Special Events Facility located at 919 Columbia Avenue.
Yes, sir. Just like you said, this is a request to put a mural on the Riley's Family Salon and Boutique at 919 Columbia Avenue. It's called Let Your Light Shine, and it's in honor of a local teen, Raymond Cruz, that passed away a few years ago. And it comes to you with a unanimous approval from the Franklin Public Arts Commission.
Thank you, Monique. Do we have anybody from the public that wants to speak? We have no one wanting to speak. I declare the public hearing closed. I entertain a motion.
Move for approval.
Thank you, Alderman Blanton.
Second with a comment.
Second with a comment from Alderman McClendon. So go ahead, Alderman McClendon.
I would just encourage the board to focus on a yes or a no and not debating the content of the proposed art for a variety of reasons. And I don't even know if anyone would think this is controversial, but we don't need to be art critics. We are either granting this permission or not.
Any other comments or questions? You ready to vote? Vice Mayor Berger,
Yes.
Alderman Barnhill,
Yes.
Alderman Martin,
Yes.
Alderman Speedy,
Yes.
Alderman Blanton,
Yes.
Alderman Peterson,
Yes.
Alderman McClendon.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Item 7, consideration resolution 2020-267, authorizing the mayor to sign documents related to a bond to be issued by the Health and Education Facilities Board of the City of Franklin on behalf of Franklin Christian Academy. Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Thank you, Alderman Martin. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Alderman Blanton. Any discussion? Ready to vote? Vice Mayor Berger,
Yes.
Alderman Barnhill,
Yes.
Alderman Martin,
Yes.
Alderman Speedy,
Yes.
Alderman Blanton,
Yes.
Alderman Peterson,
Yes.
Alderman McClendon.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Next is consideration resolution 2020-270, a resolution authorizing the use of the competitive selected proposal procurement method for choosing the service provider for firefighter annual physical medical exam services for uniformed personnel of the Franklin Fire Department, and pre-employment physical medical services for candidates to become uniformed personnel of the Franklin Police Department and the Franklin Fire Department. Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Thank you, Alderman Blanton. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Alderman Peterson. Any discussion? Ready to vote? Vice Mayor Berger,
Yes.
Alderman Barnhill,
Yes.
Alderman Martin,
Yes.
Alderman Speedy,
Yes.
Alderman Blanton,
Yes.
Alderman Peterson,
Yes.
and Alderman McClendon.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Item 9, consideration of resolution 2021-04, resolution to continue the practice of providing employees paid leave as provided in the Family's First Coronavirus Response Act. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Alderman Barnhill. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Alderman Martin. Any discussion? Ready to vote? Vice Mayor Berger, Alderman Barnhill,
Yes.
Alderman Martin,
Yes.
Alderman Speedy,
Yes.
Alderman Blanton,
Yes.
Alderman Peterson,
Yes.
Alderman McClendon.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Item 10, consideration resolution 2020-287, a resolution to affirm compliance with Federal Title VI regulations for 2021. Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Thank you, Alderman
Second.
Peterson. Seconded by, was that Alderman Barnhill?
Yes.
Okay, any discussion? Ready to vote, Vice Mayor Berger,
Yes.
Alderman Barnhill,
Yes.
Alderman Martin,
Yes.
Alderman Speedy,
Yes.
Alderman Blanton,
Yes.
Alderman Peterson,
Yes.
and Alderman McClendon.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. Item number 11, consideration resolution 2020-265, a resolution to fill vacancy of Alderman Pearl Bransford's seat on the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. And on that, in your packet, you have a number of different options. I would ask if you're going to make a motion, indicate what your choice is, please. So
Mayor
is there a
Moore?
motion?
Yes, sir.
Alderman Blanton.
I make a motion to approve with option B, and I have comment, please.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. And would you clarify what B is? I don't have that pulled up on my computer.
Yes, sir. 1 second.
I can either look at y'all or look at the,
I've got it.
Okay.
Option B says to fill the vacancy and begin the process to accept nominations. The board will vote to appoint a candidate at a later date. The appointed candidate will serve until the October 2021 election.
okay?
So,
Motion is second. Go ahead. You have a comment.
yes, sir. So my comment would be, first of all, this is awful, and I wish we didn't have to do it. But I think moving forward, when we discussed this 2 weeks ago, and I can only speak for what I remember being fleshed about, it is important to me that we do not name someone who has interest in holding this position moving forward. I think that we live in a community where voter turnout is abysmal. And by giving somebody who wants the job that opportunity, we're almost giving them the label of being an incumbent. I do think that we are poised right now with 4 wonderful ward aldermen that really give our citizens coverage in the neighborhoods in which they live. Not to say those of us who are at large don't do anything at all, but that is the seat that we are empty. I do think that we are also in a unique situation right now with the coronavirus, that we don't have the opportunity to meet in person as we are right now. And that makes it very difficult for somebody to try to step into this role and really be effective. With the item option B that I proposed, I do think that by the next election, which is for the ward alderman, we couple this empty seat with that a la special election. However, during this time, and I have talked about this with someone, and I think it would behoove us to have someone who is very familiar with not only this board, but the city at large, and just to be able to hit the ground running. Where I think we really need that help is in our committee structures. We're fixing to come on to a budget season, and that's something that Pearl served upon. And there's other various things where we do need all 8 of us to have positions. So I will tell you that my request is that we consider former Mayor
My full
John.
screen back.
Sorry. Just when I'm getting to the punchline.
Sorry.
That's fine. That we talk about a candidate, and if there's other candidates, that's fine. But I have spoken with former Mayor John Schroer, who not only served with Pearl on the Franklin Special School District School Board, he also served with her as an alderman and mayor in the capacity of the city of Franklin. Of course, we all know he went on to be TDOT commissioner, which is what gave us Ken Moore. Thank you very much. I do know that we're in a time where diversity is important, and I know that we lost that with Pearl. If I had my way, we would have more diversity than just what we had previously. And I think from now until the election, that gives people time to prepare and let the citizens decide across the board who they want representing them. I have spoken with former Mayor Schroer, and he is willing to step up and serve his city again in this capacity, and made it very clear he has no intention to want to keep this position or any other elected position ever again. So long story short, I think for us to serve the citizens well, we do this internally all the time with interim positions from people within a department. I think our department's just a little bit different here when it comes to veterans of this office. So I would love some comments from the gallery.
We'll just go down the list. Alderman Barnhill.
Mayor, I'm not sure what I have a comment on the option B, but not on all of the other stuff that was added to that. Option B says fill the vacancy and begin the process to accept nominations. And that's what I'll vote on. I have no problem whatsoever in the former mayor and TDOT director serving in this position until October. I've made it perfectly clear that whoever fills this position, whatever it is, I will not support the position being appointed beyond the election in October. I think I got to be perfectly candid with you. I'm not sure that we don't do a disservice to automatically eliminate somebody who's possibly wanting to put in their request or whatever by already stating who we're going to take as part of this process right here. So I'm a little bit concerned about that. I think that speech probably would have been better off at the process after we've seen who the candidates are, and I'm sure there will be several, and I'm sure a lot of them would be eliminated up front. But I suspect there are other candidates here in the interim, and I've talked to John, and I told him, I said, look, it didn't make any difference to me who serves in that position, but I won't put somebody in that position who is not understanding that position will be on the October 2021 city election. So you'll have the 2-year term left at large and 4 ward election positions. So there'll be 5 positions up for vote in October of 2021. And that's my take on that. I can certainly, B is fine. I have no problem with B whatsoever. So I'm gonna, if supporting B is what we need, I can support B. I would suggest to anybody that's interested in this that the position hasn't been filled by the board by any stretch of the imagination. We haven't even discussed nominations. So if you're interested, you need to look at what we're doing tonight.
Alderman Martin.
I have spoken with several people who are interested only in running for a position, a permanent position on the board, not anyone who was willing to serve for the few months that are left. And I would certainly support B, and I would certainly be very interested in Alderman Blanton's suggestion.
Alderman Speedy.
Yeah, I would support option B too. If it would help the board, we even say the appointed candidate will serve until the October 2021 election and will not run in the 2021 election.
Vice Mayor Berger.
I have a problem. First of all, I just prefer to leave it open till next October, but at the same time, because we are going into a budget session, And I agree with you, Brandy, that we need to get our committees filled. The budget session is going to be important this year, extremely important. And we really do need somebody who could step into that position day one, be totally up to speed, and take over in our committees, to join our committees and take over studying the material, knowing they've already been there, they've done that. So I'm very much interested in the fact that former Mayor Shore said that I would be willing to serve in that capacity up until October, but beyond that, he doesn't have any desire to do that, and he will not do that. And I do take his word for that. So I would like to alter B. Shauna, I believe there is nothing that holds us to make accepting nominations. I think it just puts off. I think it's difficult because then we'd have to take nominations of people, accept nominations of other people who would then say, they'd have to say to us, no, I don't want to run again. And like Margaret said, she had other people that really did want to run. And I think it just muddies the water. I would prefer to take out accepting nominations. And I would just say to the board, we have a candidate who is someone who stepped forward, who previously was on our board, who would know it from day one if they stepped in. They could help with the budget process. And next October graciously steps out as people start putting their name in this spring to run. So I would prefer to just take out accepting nominations. I would prefer that this board would come together and say we would unanimously accept John Shore's offer, take that offer and accept it, vote on it, and let's get started this month because we have a lot of work to do. And as you said, Brandy, we've got a big budget coming up. We have issues going through this last year with coronavirus, and it's muddied the waters in our budget a lot. And there are very few people out there that would step into our city and do that job. So, Shauna, could we just take that part out? I believe we have, it's wide open.
My question to you, Vice Mayor, are you making an amendment to the original motion? Or are you just making comments?
After Shauna's comment, yes, I will. Am I correct, Shauna, that we can?
Yeah, I mean, you guys can do whatever you want. There's nothing in the charter or in the code that has any sort of requirements on you. The reason I drafted it for nominations was because you kind of already have one. And the point of it, like, so when you guys get ready to vote, however you're going to do it, whatever your process is, you're going to have a motion to nominate someone. And then that motion would be seconded, and then you would vote on that. So you are going to be taking nominations and making a motion to nominate someone.
All right.
Do you understand?
All right. I'm going to hold off my amendment to this in a respect for the other aldermen weighing in. The mayor has asked us all individually to weigh in. But when you are finished weighing in, all of you, unless somebody says something differently, I'm going to ask Mr. Mayor to make an amendment. But I think
Alderman Peterson.
Thank you.
I'm in favor of option 2 of B.
Thank you. Alderman McClendon.
With all due respect to my fellow aldermen, I think we should leave it empty. And I say that for a couple of reasons. I've done this twice, debated it twice. We left the seat empty when Alderman Phillips died, who was an at-large alderman. And we muddled through and we did okay. The things that we didn't do okay about were not for want of another alderman. The timing of this one is bad because if we pass option B tonight and we take nominations, which I just parenthetically, there is no way that I in good conscience could appoint an alderman without at least hearing who might like the job. Besides John Shore, who I've served with before and for whom I have nothing but the highest opinion. However, I'm not going to leave anyone out there in the woods who thinks, well, if only I'd called a couple of these guys and let them know I wanted the job too, I might have been on the list that they went and jumped and made a decision about. So I will argue strenuously against moving past the nominations and picking the one name we've heard. But the reason I think we should leave it empty is because you don't often get a chance to pick so far in 24 years, only twice if I had the opportunity to either pick or not my colleague. In this case, if we act quickly, we would be sitting in February at the earliest, hearing from nominations, nominees, and what have you. I would envision then a round of picking. And it is entirely possible, and this did happen the second time I did this, when we had a vacancy that ended up with Alderman Skinner being appointed. Before we got to appointing Alderman Skinner, I voted against him several times. And so when he joined the board, he knew that I wasn't on his side from the beginning. Now, in the end, I supported his nomination, but not at the beginning. And I say that with nothing but high respect for Alderman Skinner. I served with him for years after that and never had a crossword with him as far as I can recall. But that's no way to launch what could be a very brief tenure on the board, with us squabbling over who we would sit next to for a few months. So I think we can make it to October. I do think that whatever else we do, we have to put that seat on the ballot for October 21. I cringe at that because I am concerned that what we are watching going on in the world, in our country today, is going to cause the October 21 alderman races to have some of the worst things about what happened in our most recent ward elections repeated, only with more money and more candidates involved. So I don't love the idea of 5 seats out of 8 on the ballot, but I can't do much about that because the alternatives are worse. But at the earliest, we would pick a replacement in February, and that's if we got in a big hurry and all got behind someone. And in all likelihood, we'd only do that after we had first, some of us voted against them, unless there was a unanimous decision. That's possible. But even then, if that person, my preference would be, if we were going to appoint someone who would tell us they didn't want to keep the seat and wouldn't seek it in October, in which case we're just basically renting a pitcher for the summer. Not that that's not ever done, it's done all the time, and if we were going to do it, then John Schroer is one of, but not the only one that would do it well. I don't see that we gain a lot by reaching into what I consider to be a fairly shallow pool of potential talent to meet the criteria that I would have. That's not to say that there's not abundant talent for the job in general, but we would be appointing someone, it seems like, who would have to have extensive knowledge of how we do things and be willing to say, I will come down there and do it roughly March through October and then bid you well. And I don't think that juice is worth the squeeze. I think we should leave it empty, not create an incumbent, and not spend our time potentially haggling amongst ourselves, picking who Pearl's replacement, if only for a few months, would be. So my preference is C. And I will tell you that if you put me to the task of going down option B, then I would say, well, I'm going to be asking them if they will commit to us that they will not run, because I do not want to make an incumbent. And if they're going to run, then they're going to get appointed and go pick up a petition the next day. And I'm not comfortable with that. So I prefer that we appoint no one, and the 7 of us and the mayor, manage it from here on out. October is not that far off.
Okay, any other comments before we vote?
Yes,
Mayor,
sir.
yes.
Alderman Barnhill.
I think I said either B or C, either one for me, and I think that Alderman McClendon has made some excellent points. I appreciate everyone's thinking that the budget is coming up and the panic of whatever it is. But the budget is presented to us by the city administrator who makes the budget. We make relatively few changes to the budget. We sit and listen. It's a fairly lengthy process and many days out of several months that we listen to all of that. But relatively few changes are made to the budget by the alderman. We make and that. So it's not, if someone tells you that we need 4 aldermen in order to do the budget, that's not correct. 7 aldermen can do this job. We've done it with 7. I've served on the board with 7. I ran to fill a 1-year unexpired term when I first ran. So I've been through the whole gamut of this stuff. I believe that to make a nomination tonight and not give some public input and give a public an opportunity to also have someone else out there who may want to do this, an opportunity to at least come before the board and say, I'll do it. I'm not going to run, or I'm going to run. That may disqualify the person. It probably would me. I'm not going to put somebody in that says that this is their stepping stone. But I do agree with Alderman McClendon. The board will and can function with 7 people for the balance of this time until the October election, in which time the new person would come on board in November.
Mayor, may I say one more thing?
Go ahead, Alderman Blanton.
My intent in this whole thing, and I guess I need to clarify that I did ask John, he did not approach. It was my idea because I think that it was a very unique way to make us whole in the interim when we wish it were Pearl. In a way, again, I will say, much like we do in any department, you have an interim person that knows the job until you find the person who applies for the job. And given an analogy, that's what I'm going to offer you. It by no means to disregard anybody who is interested. I do think it's he's uniquely equipped to assume this role to help us. And it wasn't for his benefit that he was willing to do this. So I understand what everybody's saying. My intent was just to try to figure out a way for us to move forward with the business of the city in such a very small window with somebody who's willing and extremely able to help us do that. So wherever the chips may lie, I appreciate his willingness. And yes, sir. I just wanted to clarify that.
Mayor,
Go ahead, Alderman Martin.
I think that was a very wonderful idea you had, and I just wish it were my idea. Wish it had been my idea, because I think he has promised he doesn't want it. I believe him, and I have not talked to one other soul who would be interested in doing this for that few months. And there is a learning curve, just sitting in that spot behind the Zoom camera, that's learning and to be able to function behind it. So I appreciate what your thoughts were, Brandy, and I will support you.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make an amendment to option B.
Okay.
My
Go ahead,
amendment
Vice Mayor.
would be to fill the I'll make the amendment with a comment. The amendment would be to fill the vacancy with former Mayor John Shore, not taking any nominees at this time, that he would serve until October 2021, the time of the election, and that the board would vote in 2 weeks to accept that nomination that we make here tonight and make it permanent starting on the vote in 2 weeks. That's my motion. I'll need to second that, and then I have a comment on it.
I will second that, Bev.
All right. Now, my comment is that, a lot of times we don't do a lot of changes in our budget, but we've been through some very unique times this last year. So I do believe that the budget's going to we're going to look at that budget and scrutinize the budget. I think we're going to look at it with a fine-tooth comb in different ways this year. Second of all, I don't want to put other people in a position of saying, hey, do you want to fill this position and promise us that you won't run in October? I don't want to put people in that position. I don't think it's fair to do that, because some people would get in and go, hey, I really enjoy getting into the integral runnings of the city, and I really have developed an interest. I don't want to put people in that position. I want people to come forward starting this spring and put their names in the hat to run for that position if we are going to do that election for that seat in October. So I think we ought to hands off, let the people come forward. Let's not play the games to toss up balls in the air and say, who do we pick? I think we have a person who knows the ropes, who can walk in, do this job, help us do this job until October. Say goodbye and thank you very much. So I don't want to put people in that position, and that's why I made that amendment. And thank you for supporting that, Randy.
Anybody else want to discuss the amendment? Go ahead, Alderman Barnhill.
This will be a discussion on the amendment, and I want to use my Alderman McClendon's comment with all due respect. I want you to understand something, Alderman, my Vice Mayor Berger. Whether there's 2, 3, 4, 5, that budget gets just as much scrutiny this year as it did last year, as it did the year before last. And whether we've got 3 on the committee, 4 on the committee, whether the mayor makes a rearrangement of the committee whatsoever, that budget will be scrutinized. So don't go someplace and think that and allude to the fact that the budget is not being scrutinized based upon not having 4 people on the committee.
Yeah, that wasn't my.
Anybody else want to make comments on the amendment to the motion? Are you ready to vote on the amendment? Alderman Barnhill.
Mayor, I'm going to support the amendment.
Alderman Martin.
Yes.
Alderman Bransford. I'm sorry.
Oh,
What a faux pas.
it's okay.
I'm just reading from my list. Alderman Speedy.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Berger. Vice Mayor Berger.
Yes.
Alderman Blanton.
Yes, sir.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
And Alderman McClendon.
No, for the reasons I said up previously, and exactly what I said would happen if we did this, just did. I have now voted against a man I will be serving with, as a matter of principle and not with respect to the man, for whom I have great respect.
And he can take it.
Well, at least he won't be able to gavel me down anymore.
One of my simple pleasures. We'll now look at the motion as amended. You ready to vote on it?
Yes, sir.
Vice Mayor Berger.
Yes.
Alderman Barnhill. Alderman Barnhill.
Yes.
Alderman Martin.
Yes.
Alderman Speedy.
Yes.
Alderman Blanton.
Yes.
Alderman Peterson.
Yes.
And Alderman McClendon.
Still no, same reasons.
Thank you. The motion passes 6-1.
Mayor, could I ask a question before you go to the next item? Sworn in next time and seated on the second meeting of the month of January? Or
Yes.
seated on the first meeting of February?
That was my motion.
Okay.
My motion, let me just clarify the motion if anybody needs that clarified. The motion was to vote in 2 weeks.
Yes.
And if it's passed, he takes that seat that night.
So the vote, you have not appointed, you will take a vote in 2 weeks to make that appointment, correct?
I have a prediction. There will be an outcry.
I'll second that prediction.
Sonnet.
Okay, is everybody clear what the motion was? We need to, everybody good? Ready to move on to item 12?
Yeah, I would just say that, you know, I think everybody's intentions here are good and we can only do what we can do. And I don't think we need to angst about this. We're only talking between now and October. We have work to do. I think we move forward. And I just want
And, all right, we're going to move on then. Item 12, appointment of Nicholas Mann as the Franklin Municipal Planning Commission representative of the Historic Zoning Commission. I need a motion.
So move.
Thank you, Alderman Barnhill. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Alderman Speedy. Any discussion? Ready to vote? Vice Mayor Berger,
yes.
Alderman Blanton,
Yes, sorry.
Alderman Peterson,
Yes.
Alderman McClendon,
Yes.
Alderman Barnhill,
Yes.
and Alderman Martin,
Yes.
Alderman Speedy.
Yes.
Passes unanimously. I need a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Thank you,
No
Alderman
executive
Barnhill. No executive session.
Second.
Thank you. Alderman Barnhill, how do you vote? Unmute, Alderman Barnhill.
Mayor, I've touched every button on that screen.
Does that mean all you got to do is say yes? Alderman Martin,
Yes.
Alderman Speedy,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Berger,
Yes.
Alderman Blanton,
Yes, sir.
Alderman Peterson,
Yes.
Alderman McClendon.
Hallelujah.
We're adjourned.